Tonight, a state of emergency declared in Southern California, and the pictures are wild. A monster storm trapping residents in the mountains outside of Los Angeles. Roads completely impassable. Grocery stores running out of food. We'll talk to one family that has been stranded for days as yet another storm takes aim. Millions in its path from coast to coast. We'll have the full forecast in just moments. Our other major headline tonight, the student debt showdown at the Supreme Court. President Biden vowing to forgive $500 billion in student loans. But is that plan legal? What the conservative justices signaled in court today and what it means for the 40 million Americans carrying college debt. Trapped by war, the incredible report tonight from inside of a Ukrainian town surrounded on all sides by Russian forces. The few remaining civilians forced to drink from drain pipes to stay alive. Will take you inside the trenches with the soldiers struggling to hold the front line. Plus, the stunning images out of El Salvador, inmates packed together inside of a new mega prison as part of the president's, quote, war on gangs. But is this crackdown curbing the violence? What residents on the ground and human rights watchdogs are now saying. And ready to run? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis fueling rumors of a possible presidential run, launching a nationwide tour to promote his new book. How former President Trump is responding to this cross-country blitz tonight, and what a new poll says about who would win in a potential 2024 matchup. Top story starts right now. And good evening. We begin Top Story tonight with the state of emergency in California. A powerful blizzard shutting down major highways and leaving residents stranded in the mountains. Let's take a look at some of the images coming in. The Sierra Nevadas, right? Just getting pummeled with snow. You can see the whiteout conditions near Soda Springs in Northern California. Plows struggling to keep up. Some areas expected to get up to 7 feet of snow. Grocery store shelves empty in San Bernardino County, just outside of Los Angeles, where many families remain trapped. The snow making it impossible for delivery trucks to get through or for those families to get out. In a moment, we'll talk to a family with 2 young children that has been snowed in for days, how their mom tells us she's been keeping up everyone's spirits. And at lower elevations, days of heavy rain triggering mudslides, parts of the famed Mulholland Drive closed after this hillside. You see it right here, gave way. And much of the Northeast still digging out from the major snowstorm yesterday. Hundreds of schools closed for the day across New York and New England. And yet another cross-country storm, look at this, taking aim, expected to bring much more snow, heavy rain, and possible tornadoes. We'll have the full forecast in a moment, but we begin first with Miguel Almaguer and that dire situation out in California.
Before sunrise, the state of emergency was ordered in the mountains just outside Los Angeles. Already buried under as much as 7 feet of snow, trapped residents in San Bernardino County are rationing food and running short on supplies as another major snowstorm barrels in. Crazy storm. Never experienced this kind of weather before. In Lake Arrowhead, Griffith Vertigan hiked a mile through waist-deep snow to get to a gas station. Major roads are impassable, and many, like Teresa Grant, are stranded.
We haven't seen a plow in days.
The jackknife.
This once-in-a-generation storm shutting down more than 70 miles of Interstate 80, a lifeline for commerce.
Luckily, I have my dad with me, otherwise I'd be panicking.
Nationwide, more than 10 million are under winter weather alerts. New York City today with its first significant snowfall as thunderstorms and the threat of tornadoes close in on the south. But back on the West Coast, another whiteout is on the way.
Tom, travel isn't just treacherous. In parts of California, it's impossible. This car is buried under several feet of snow. And later today, we're expecting another storm with 75-mile-per-hour winds and up to a foot more of snow. Tom?
Miguel Almaguer leading us off tonight here on Top Story with just one section of California bombarded by snow. For a better understanding of what it's like from inside that state of emergency, we're joined now by Luke and Natalie Granger, residents of Lake Arrowhead. Also, Luke is the fire captain for the city of Colton, both of those located in San Bernardino County, where the state of emergency has been declared. Natalie and Luke, thanks so much for joining Top Story tonight. I know it's a very tough night where you guys are located. First off, I want to let our viewers know where you are. You're just a little northeast of Los Angeles, up in the mountains. Talk to us what the last few days have been like for you and for your family.
Well,
It's been snowy and it's been cold. Snowstorms are a common occurrence here. They've always have been, but this last one, it dumped a lot of snow and it kind of overwhelmed our local resources to the point where there's no room to push the snow out of the way anymore. So
yeah, you know, we have a video that you guys sent us, Luke. I want to show our viewers this video because, and I'm not sure if it was you pushing sort of like the snowplow machine. Your car, it looks like a Jeep, is completely covered in snow. You can't even see it. And it looks like whoever's pushing that machine is really not doing a whole lot. There's someone with a shovel trying to help out as well. I mean, how tough was it to dig people out?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's a lot easier if you can maintain it every couple hours. But when you get overwhelmed and you got nowhere to shovel it to, what you can't see is in the background of my Jeep is a Dodge Ram truck.
Oh, wow.
Entirely.
Yeah, you can't even make that out. Natalie, what was the hardest part for you? What's been the hardest part? I know you guys are still under the state of emergency.
I think keeping up with our community's needs. There's a lot of families. It's a very tight-knit community. Again, this came very quickly. Most of us prepare for this ahead of time, and even with our preparations, there still are basic and vital needs that need to be met. With the roads not being able to be cleared quick enough, trying to meet those needs physically are difficult.
You know, you mentioned the roads not being cleared enough. We have another still that you sent. I think it was a gas truck or a water truck. I'm not exactly sure. It looked like it was stuck in the snow there. Very powerful image here. What are some of the things you guys need right now in your community?
Our community typically struggles with the funding. Although we're within a large county of San Bernardino County, it's still a very small community and very unique. Although we're only 30 minutes from an urban city, we lack a lot of that funding and resources. Immediate needs right now are plows, and not just plows, major heavy equipment. This is a heavy load of snow. There's not a lot of areas to store it, dump it. We need a lot of equipment. There's going to be a lot of work. Just in our community alone, we have a lot of digging and plowing out to do. And this is a large, dense, rural community. So we need those resources immediately. And we're hoping with the state of emergency declared that those resources become immediate to us. We need our grocery stores filled. We need those gas trucks to get here. The last thing we need is a lot of visitors at this time until we can get those resources and get our community back to a safe and functioning level.
And Luke, you know, you're the captain of the fire department there, one of the fire departments. Are you able to talk to the governor's office or any emergency management officials to get some of the things you need for your community?
That's above my head at my level, but the guys are doing everything they can. It's a large machine to logistically support, and everybody's doing what they can. But between Caltrans and the County of San Bernardino Public Works, they're relying a lot on the community and our neighbors. Travis Snyder has been over backwards trying to get his heavy machinery up here, and he's just one of a dozen the mountain folks trying to make our lives better and doable and get people out that are reliant on emergency medicines, trying to get to doctor's appointments. The roads have to be open because it's impossible to get through the roads right now.
And Natalie, anything immediate that people can do, viewers are watching this or people watching in California, anything they can do to help?
I think at this point, for those family members that have been stranded down the mountain, it would be helpful to get some sort of a Red Cross resource, maybe resources like getting in touch with those who need those vital medications and transporting those up. At this point, they only have escorts for residents to make it up the roads to the mountains. That's where my heart is really hurting, or for these parents that have needs for specific formulas and medications, people that are stuck down the hill, some way to get those to Red Cross or first responders that are able to get those up to them sooner. To be honest, it sounds like a joke. Snowshoes, cross-country skis, until we get more of these roads cleared, that's our best bet of transportation at this point.
Natalie, real quick, just because you mentioned this, there are families that are in need of formula. I mean, how dire is the situation, just so people watching this can understand?
I just have a brief access to social media here and there. There was a family who the mother was trapped down the mountain from work, and the father has the child, the infant, and put a call out on social media for breast milk. You know, there's things where this community is so tight knit that it'll take from house to house on a sled if they have to get what they need. But the most important part to realize is that these employees for our stores can't even get to work. First responders can't get to where they need to be. We would love to be out more, but we have to get out. So today has been the first day with our neighbor bringing up his heavy equipment that we may even have a possibility to get out tomorrow and maybe help a little further.
Natalie and Luke Granger, we will be thinking about you, and we will stay on top of this story in the days to come. For more on this forecast, I want to get right over to Bill Cairns. Bill, before you hit the forecast, what can that couple, that family in San Bernardino County, expect over the next couple days?
And Tom, I think people have to get the perspective of these are areas that are used to heavy snow. They have some of the best equipment possible, and they are getting overwhelmed. Let me give you an example. Mammoth has reported 9 feet of snow in the last 7 days. The UC Berkeley Snow Lab in the Sierra, where they measure snow, it's like their job. They had 3 feet of snow yesterday alone, and it's still coming down. I mean, we have blizzard conditions, 60 miles per hour winds. So it's not only snowing, but it's also snow drifts are blowing in different areas. And this will continue through tonight and then slowly improve tomorrow. And there's not a lot of snow after this storm system, so the cleanup will begin. But, you know, we're talking feet of snow, mounds of snow that they have to get through. So about 17 million people are in the path of this storm. And the snow totals, in addition to what we've already had, still could get another 2 to 4 feet on top of it. And there's that UC Berkeley Snow Lab, 36 inches in the last 24 hours. And by the way, the lodge at Mammoth was closed today, which is very rare. And they now have over 500 inches on the season. They say their snow depth right now is between 12 and 15 feet. So if you took a metal stake and hammered it down on the ground, that's how deep the snow is in some areas of the Sierra. Then eventually this storm will make it to the northeast, but that's not till Friday night, and some wet weather and also for New York City, but snow in the higher elevations. And Tom, will end with this. This storm will bring us another severe weather outbreak. It starts tomorrow, but Thursday is the heads-up day, maybe even a few strong tornadoes.
All right, Bill, we appreciate it. We want to turn now next tonight to a pair of Supreme Court cases that will impact tens of millions of student loan borrowers. The court hearing arguments today on whether the Biden administration had the authority to forgive these loans. NBC's Laura Jarrett has more from Washington.
Tonight, the Biden administration's plan to wipe away nearly $500 billion in student loan debt, facing a skeptical conservative majority on the Supreme Court.
And along comes the government and tells that person, you don't have to pay your loan.
The financial futures of more than 40 million now in limbo. People like Maggie Bell, the first in her family to graduate from college, carrying $30,000 in federal loans.
Debt is difficult. It's depressing. It's stressful.
She wants the justices to uphold President Biden's plan to erase $10,000 in federal student loan debt for anyone who makes less than $125,000 and $20,000 for lower income borrowers.
Groceries are high, gas is high. Like, seeing a vacation this year is very difficult for me, right? And I'm not the only person in this boat.
Liberal justices today saying the proposal will help millions left struggling after the pandemic.
They don't have friends or families or others who can help them make these payments. The evidence is clear that many of them will have to default.
But the White House plan is now on pause after 6 Republican-led states and borrowers sued. Several conservative justices today questioning whether the administration overstepped its authority by going around Congress.
Most casual observers would say if you're going to give up that much amount of money, they would think that's something for Congress to act on.
Tasfika Robb is a college sophomore and son of a taxi driver. He didn't take out federal loans and says it's unfair to force him to pay off others' debts.
I chose not to take this loan, even though I could definitely benefit from it, and I needed that money, but I chose not to. So how is it fair to people like myself? I'm not able to get a single penny out of this program.
Laura joins top story tonight from outside the Supreme Court. So, Laura, we saw your report there. I guess my question is, despite the skepticism from some of the conservative justices today, where do we see this going? Could the suit still be dismissed?
Yeah, Tom, several of the justices, both conservatives and liberals, seemed largely unconvinced that the plaintiffs in this case who brought the actual suit, the borrowers in these Republican-led states, actually have standing, the legal right to get into court here. And if they don't have standing, this whole case goes away, Tom.
So many Americans across this country are going to be following this case because they have student loan debt. Does the Biden White House have a plan B if this gets struck down?
There's always a plan B, but it may not be a course that they want to take. Of course, this came up actually at oral argument today, and the Biden administration has to acknowledge that, of course, it could go through a far lengthier process using something called notice and comment, which would involve potentially months up to even years. Obviously, they would prefer a more short-term solution, Tom.
Okay, Laura Jarrett making her top story debut tonight as well. Laura, welcome to NBC. We turn out of power in politics. All eyes on Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis ahead of a potential White House run. The governor releasing a new book today, and it's already the #1 bestseller on Amazon. The page is filled with mentions of former President Trump, and a new poll shows the two are a likely matchup in 2024. NBC's Ali Vitale has this one.
Ron DeSantis inching closer to a presidential bid.
God bless you all.
Making stops across the country, huddling with donors last weekend in Palm Beach, and launching a new book outlining a blueprint for America's revival.
People would say, how'd you do it in Florida?
The book marks a key step in defining DeSantis outside the Sunshine State, touting his controversial COVID response, proximity to former President Donald Trump, and culture clashes, including with Disney, officially stripping them of their special status in the state yesterday.
Disney ran the show in this state for a long time until I became governor. And we said, you know, we're going to side with the people of Florida.
But just because he's not in the race yet doesn't mean other Republicans aren't anticipating the primary battle ahead.
I like what he's done. I'm a Trump supporter. He'll have to prove to me that he would be a better president than President Trump. If elected.
A new poll shows DeSantis trails Trump in the theoretical matchup, but sets the stage for an early two-man race. DeSantis' book gives a fresh sense of how he could take on his main rival, which is to say, not directly, if at all. The book mentions Trump more than 100 times in 288 pages and showcases DeSantis as a steadfast ally, both in Congress and as Florida governor. At one point calling Trump the most famous person to run for the GOP nomination since Dwight Eisenhower, and saying that in 2016, Trump had almost instantly built a massive following and was now the man to beat in the primaries. He also parroted Trump's disdain for the media, calling investigations into alleged Russian collusion a media-driven hoax designed to cast doubt on the results of the 2016 presidential election and strangle the Trump presidency in the crib. It comes as others who once stuck by Trump are drawing their own indirect contrast with him, like former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
I think we need to have a new generation. I think we have to leave the status quo. I think we have to leave the old issues behind.
And Trump's former VP, Mike Pence.
Implicit in saying that you're considering running is the idea that you think you could be at least a different president, if not a better president, than your former boss. Can you delineate just one policy difference that you might have with him?
Well, I think the times call for different leadership. And I'm confident we'll have better choices.
You're thinking about being one?
Than my old running mate, come 2024.
All right, Ali Vitale joins us now from Washington. Ali, I want to go back to something you reported. In the book, Governor DeSantis mentions President Trump. I think it's around 100 times is what you reported. Has former President Trump responded to that?
Yeah, he's responding today, Tom, and using words and phrases that we've heard him use before when it comes to Ron DeSantis, specifically calling him Ron DeSanctimonious again, and in true Trump fashion, referencing recent polling that shows Trump ahead of DeSantis. That's true and has long been true as we've been looking not just at recent polls, but polling trends. But really, when you look at those, it's clear there are always two men at the top of this field. It is Trump and DeSantis both, even at this early point.
And then, Ali, I know you have some new reporting for us tonight here on Top Story about DeSantis' schedule. You know, if we sort of study what Governor DeSantis has done over the years he's been governor, he hasn't traveled a whole lot outside of Florida. But now I know you have some new reporting. And sort of a follow-up to that, we know that he's not going to attend CPAC, which is a big conservative conference that a lot of would-be contenders like to attend. At least they did in the past.
Yeah, ditching out on CPAC is pretty notable, especially because it really is and has become during the Trump years, as you know, a key conservative gathering and a place where they can really huddle with the grassroots, earn some media coverage. DeSantis, though, not going to that conference this year. Neither, though, are people like former Vice President Mike Pence. Trump, of course, is going. That's fertile ground for him. But at the same time, too, if you look at DeSantis's other travel, his team is apparently mulling some trips, not just in relation to his book tour, where he's going to be going to places like Texas, Alabama, and California, but he also might be thinking about making trips to states that we typically look for presidential candidates or presidential hopefuls to go to. I'm talking Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. Those could be on the schedule in the coming weeks, too, I'm told.
Okay, Ali Vitali. Ali, we appreciate it. We want to head overseas now. Authorities in Russia were on high alert today after reporting a series of drone attacks near the border with Ukraine and elsewhere in Russia. No casualties were reported. And tonight, NBC's Keir Simmons has a rare look inside Crimea, the territory in southern Ukraine that Russia has occupied since 2014.
This is a view American news crews rarely get, to be this close to the Russian Navy, President Putin's prized Black Sea Fleet. We're in Sevastopol, Crimea, home to a crucial Navy base that both sides may now be ready to fight for.
This is what President Putin will be determined to defend. This is his real red line.
Moscow illegally annexed Crimea 9 years ago. Ukraine wants it all back. But removing Russia from this city, teeming with Putin's soldiers, would not be easy. Diana happily shows us her passport.
This is your Russian passport?
Yeah. This may be a sign of what's to come. An explosion last October that took out the critical bridge that links Crimea to Russia. Russia accuses Ukraine of the attack. Ukraine never admitted responsibility. We travelled here by train on that same crossing, across what the UN calls Ukraine's internationally recognised border. The bridge reopened just last week.
This is where that explosion hit this bridge last October at around this time in the morning.
Ukraine's President Zelensky told the West, give us more weapons and we'll get back what's ours. But Crimea, where we saw new signs for air raid shelters, has many pro-Russian residents who say it's theirs.
Is Crimea Russian or Ukrainian? Crimea is Russian.
Of course Russian, 73-year-old Praksovia tells me. We travelled to the town of Batchisarai, traditional home of Crimea's Tatar ethnic group, victims of human rights abuses, the UN says, for opposing Moscow. We all pray to the same God, this mother tells me. Why can't we share bread? Then we find a father with a lot to lose.
Your son is fighting for Russia. How old's your son?
20, he tells me. Then he says, Zelensky will not get Crimea back because we have our commander-in-chief, Putin. In this year-long war, new battle lines are being drawn.
Now to the Americas, the shocking images out of El Salvador's new mega prison. We're now seeing the first arrivals of 2,000 alleged gang members packed together like sardines, while El Salvador's president hails it as a victory. Human rights groups are sounding the alarm. Valerie Castro has this story.
Hundreds of inmates, barefoot and stripped down to white shorts, scurry into El Salvador's new mega prison, ordered to crouch down on the ground one after another. These alleged gang members are the first prisoners of the complex named the Center for the Confinement of Terrorism. With a highly produced speech to police, President Nayib Bukele celebrating the massive prison's opening, a cornerstone of his war on gangs. Also tweeting, they're not scary anymore, are they? The new complex, capable of holding 40,000 inmates, considered to be the largest of its kind in the Americas. The president touring the facility, fully equipped with armed guards and prison staff, workshops for inmates to manufacture goods, as well as dark isolation cells meant for solitary confinement and harsh punishment for, quote, anyone who tries to make any trouble. with no mattresses to sleep on or even any visitors allowed. Bukele declaring a state of emergency last March as violence plagued the country with more than 60 homicides reported in just one day. Top Story has been following the story since then, reporting on the mass arrests that followed as police hunted down alleged criminals.
They say they've arrested over 6,000 suspected gang members.
The emergency declaration, meant to be temporary but extended several times, suspended some constitutional rights like arrest warrants and access to legal representation. Human Rights Watch documenting the arrests of thousands, which include children.
That led to then the detention of 64,000 people, including 1,600 children.
What do you make of his use of social media to forward the publicity of this campaign?
President Bukele is making enormous efforts to control the narrative of what is happening in the country, and he does that through social media.
Despite the controversial show of force, some say the crime crackdown is working. The president seeing the highest approval ratings of any other Latin American leader.
Hay más seguridad, ando más tranquilo, puedo salir a caminar. Bueno, yo salgo a caminar todas las noches con mis hijos pequeños en toda la colonia. Y antes no podía.
El Salvador's National Civil Police reporting a sharp decline in homicides this February compared to years past. While the violence has gone down, some believe the cost may be too high.
We don't know if those who are being detained have committed a crime or are just there because they were tattooed and were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
All right, Valerie Castro joins us now here in studio. Kind of interesting, 90% approval rating, and yet people were still afraid to go on camera to talk about his presidency. Some people are questioning the timing of this opening of the mega prison because of an indictment that was unsealed here in the U.S.
That's right. Human Rights Watch is saying this is a way for the president to distract from that indictment that was unsealed last week against several alleged MS-13 gang members here in the United States. It includes allegations that they were engaged in, quote, secret negotiations with government officials in El Salvador for things like reduced prison sentences and special treatment in exchange for reducing the number of public murders. That would potentially benefit the president's approval, as you mentioned, Tom, but he has denied those allegations in the past.
Okay, Valerie Castro. Valerie, we appreciate that. Still ahead tonight, the carjacking nightmare. Police in Chicago searching for this BMW after it was stolen from a pregnant woman in a violent carjacking, while authorities are blaming Volkswagen for delaying their investigation. And the stunning new statement from the director of the FBI, what he said today about the theory that COVID was leaked from a lab in Wuhan, China. Top Story is just getting started on this Tuesday. We're back with a terrifying carjacking just outside of Chicago. Police now looking for two suspects that ran over a pregnant woman and stole her Volkswagen with her 2-year-old son in the back seat. Law enforcement says Volkswagen could have helped track the vehicle, but refused until they paid up. NBC's Stephen Romo has more.
Tonight, the hunt is on for this BMW and two suspects wanted in connection with a violent carjacking involving a toddler just outside of Chicago. Police say this pursuit was slowed down when the company that monitors the stolen car's tracking device initially refused to help find the suspects.
It just makes me scared and frightened. You know, it's very sad. I wish I could do something.
Investigators say a pregnant mother was run over by these carjackers who took her Volkswagen SUV with her 2-year-old still in the back seat. The woman told police she pulled into her driveway last week and brought one child inside her home. And when she went back to get the second child, she found that white BMW had pulled in behind her.
An individual got out of the stolen BMW, attacked the 34-year-old victim, shoved her to the ground and jumped in the driver's seat of her Volkswagen.
That mother sustained multiple fractures in her lower body, according to investigators, and is now in stable condition. After she was run over, she was still able to call 911, kicking off law enforcement's frantic search.
Suspect is a male unknown, tall and thin, wearing a light gray zip-up hoodie and a light green COVID-style mask.
The Lake County Sheriff's Office says a detective realized the stolen Volkswagen SUV was equipped with a tracking service known as CarNet that could help them find the vehicle and the toddler. But they soon hit a roadblock. Sheriff's officials saying they were told they had to pay about $150 to reinstate that service because the family's free trial had ended.
The detective said, hey, listen, this is life or death. An abducted 2-year-old child that was just violently taken from his mother. The employee indicated that we would have to pay to reinitiate the service for him to provide us that information.
Investigators say this caused a delay in tracking that SUV from Libertyville, Illinois. But luckily, they got help from a Good Samaritan who saw the carjackers dump the child in a parking lot in nearby Waukegan unharmed. Authorities say the SUV was also recovered all before CarNet got the payment and helped in the search. Volkswagen telling NBC News in a statement they have a procedure in place with a third-party provider for their CarNet services involving emergency requests. And, quote, unfortunately, in this instance, there was a serious breach of the process. We are addressing the situation with the parties involved. But security expert Bill Stanton says the people and systems that monitor such technologies need to be streamlined because the delay in assistance was unacceptable.
People have to know, even though they have a job, maybe a simple job is answering a phone, to use that discretion.
Okay, Stephen Romo joins us now on set. Stephen, do we know how long investigators believe they were delayed because of this issue with the tracking device?
Yeah, they say it took about 30 minutes for them to find the way to send that payment and for them to actually get that information. And in that time, police were able to find that SUV on their own. And this Good Samaritan was able to find this child in just about 15 minutes. So that is the good news. But police say these two suspects are still on the loose, and that data could have helped them track these people down as well.
Yeah. Okay, Stephen Romo, a very strange story, but an important one. Steve, thank you. When we come back, an update on the University of Idaho murders we've been following closely here on Top Story. Authorities unsealing the arrest warrant for Brian Kohberger, the man accused of killing 4 college students last fall. What police found inside of his parents' home on the day he was arrested. That's next. All right, we are back now with Top Story's news feed. FBI Director Chris Wray saying on camera for the first time that the agency believes the source of COVID was a lab leak in China. Take a listen.
The FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident in Wuhan. You're talking about a potential leak from a Chinese government-controlled lab that killed millions of Americans.
And we want to mention, of course, he made those comments to Fox News today. The FBI first made that assessment with moderate confidence a year ago, but Wray's comments come a day after NBC News reported the Energy Department also assessed COVID began with a Chinese lab leak, first reported by the Wall Street Journal. The White House has previously said there is no consensus within the U.S. government about where the virus came from. New details in the arrest of Brian Kohberger for the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, a newly unsealed search warrant revealing authorities seized 4 medical-style gloves, 1 flashlight, a pair of Nike shoes, and multiple items of clothing from his parents' Pennsylvania home. They also took a DNA swab. Investigators executing that search warrant during his arrest on December 30th. He's currently in Idaho awaiting trial for those murders. An Ohio bus driver is being hailed a hero after saving a student's life. Take a look. Security video shows driver April Wise pulling a student to safety by his book bag right as a speeding car stops next to her school bus. This happened just outside of Dayton. Wise was later honored with an award for her quick actions. No word yet on any consequences for that driver. And the FAA is investigating a close call between a Learjet and a JetBlue flight. According to an FAA statement exclusively obtained by NBC News, the incident occurred when the pilot of a Learjet plane took off without clearance as the JetBlue plane was preparing to land. The FAA says the JetBlue plane had to take evasive action to avoid the other plane. No word yet on just how close they came. Okay, now to Washington, where there are new calls to close a security gap on Capitol Hill. A former Capitol Police sergeant who was fighting off rioters on January 6 is now speaking about a loophole that allows members of Congress to carry guns onto the House floor. Our Ryan Noble spoke to some lawmakers who are now weighing in on the controversy.
The deadly violence of the January 6 riots revealed glaring gaps in security. The officer in the middle of this melee from that day is former Capitol Police Sergeant Aquilino Gunnell.
It's disturbing.
He's still worried that a vulnerability remains, and it could lead to a big problem.
The protocol is for them to pass us around security.
Members of Congress are never security screened when they enter the Capitol complex, and some openly brag about carrying guns, even down to the House floor.
You know, I'm actually really enjoying the United States Capitol to start feeling like America again, a little more freedom.
After the Capitol riot, then Speaker Nancy Pelosi put up magnetometers around the chamber. But the second Republicans took the majority, the mags came down. So you know there are fellow members that have weapons on the floor of the House?
Oh, absolutely. The day the metal detectors came down. Maybe the day before, who knows?
This loophole is something California Congressman Jared Huffman wants closed.
It's crazy to just assume that all of these people are immune to those factors and that they can bring guns into the United States Capitol and nothing will go wrong. It is going to happen at some point.
In a letter shared first with NBC News, Huffman asks President Biden to appoint a new architect of the Capitol, who's responsible for the administration of the security of the complex and will deal directly with this issue. Sergeant Cannell argues the lack of screening for potentially hundreds of people makes the job of Capitol Police more difficult.
When you have members of Congress inciting violence, inciting the people to come and breach the Capitol, and then imagine if they all have weapons inside, it would be chaos.
And with threats against lawmakers at an all-time high, the mix of political passion and guns makes GOP Congressman Troy Nehls, a former sheriff, nervous.
I support two-way. I'm all about that. But this is United States Capitol, and it's kind of like, you know, would you allow people to carry weapons at the county courthouse in civil trials dealing with divorce proceedings? Right. No, the emotions are too high.
Ryan Nobles joins us tonight from Capitol Hill Live. Ryan, I got to think that this issue is so serious that it had to be brought up and now enter the public forum, even though by highlighting this, there's a lot of risk in exposing a vulnerability at the Capitol. How is the Capitol Police responding to all this tonight?
Tom, they didn't want to comment on it. It's not the Capitol Police's responsibility to create this policy. It's only their responsibility to enforce a policy like this. It is the Capitol Police Board's responsibility to do that. That's part of the reason that Congressman Huffman is asking the new architect of the Capitol to weigh in on this. But I can tell you, Tom, this is something that people talk about on a regular basis up here, that the 535 members, the people that they're traveling with, are never security screened at any point when they enter this building. It is a security loophole, and it is one that people are finally starting to talk about needing to be closed.
Okay, Ryan, we thank you for that. We turn now to Top Stories Global Watch and chilling new details about the migrant tragedy off the coast of Italy. Prosecutors say the suspected smugglers charged 8,000 euros, about $8,500 US, for a trip that they're now calling the, quote, voyage of death. The ship carrying an estimated 200 migrants from Turkey crashed and broke apart near Calabria. The bodies of at least 65 people have been pulled from the sea. And an oil tanker sank off the west coast of the Philippines, causing thousands of liters of oil to spill into the sea. New aerial footage shows the spill, which the Coast Guard says spans about 3 miles. The tanker was traveling with 20 crew members on board when it experienced engine trouble and became partially submerged. All crew members were rescued. And we have another report tonight from the war in Ukraine. Our partners from Sky News taking us inside a mining town on that front line that is under constant bombardment from Russia's military. The few remaining residents trapped by war even forced to collect rainwater from drain pipes to survive. Alex Rossi is there.
This is the scarred and battered mining town of Volodar. It's held by Ukraine but is being attacked continuously by Russian forces. We entered with a military escort as it came under fire again. The soldiers taking us towards frontline positions warn us to space out and not hang around.
We need to move fast over this bit.
There's the constant threat of an artillery strike. It is a gut-churning zigzag across the broken ground. While taking cover, there are moments of quiet before another shell whistles through the sky.
This place has been absolutely devastated by the fighting. Every apartment block has had the windows blown out. There are shell craters all around us. And there's still plenty of incoming fire as well.
About 15,000 people lived here until it was smashed by war. Only a handful remain. There are no services, and they collect rainwater from drain pipes to survive, always staying close to cover.
Что страшно-то страшно, это трошки это самое, а так не выходим, сидим в подвале, с подвала не выходим. Потому что не знаешь, что ожидать. Может бабахнуть, он видите, вот тут разрывалось все это. Так что тяжело, очень тяжело.
Perhaps nothing sums up the insanity of the war more than this: the wholesale destruction of people's lives and possessions.
About 2 kilometers, enemy dead, about 2 kilometers.
The town, we're told, is strategically important, as Ukrainian forces can target Russian supply lines. It's why Moscow's forces are desperate to capture it.
І вони далі йдуть, якби не зупиняються. Вони, то, що я бачу, вони просто по своїм трупам йдуть. Якби вони проходять своїх побратимів і просто йдуть далі. І вони лягають, далі лягають, якби не зупиняються.
Inside a bunker, one of the commanders has just coordinated a counterattack. He shows us a panorama of the town and the body of a dead Russian commando on a live stream beamed from a drone.
Багато намагаються штурмувати нас, поки справляємось. На жаль, багато в них, скажімо так, дальнобійної мінометної арти, танки закриті, яких ми не бачимо.
We were taken to another position near the town, this time with a different brigade. A message comes through that Russian troops are on the move. Since the start of the Kremlin's new offensive, they've been very active along the line of contact. The soldiers in the trenches respond by laying down an arc of fire. The razor wire in front of them is a last defense against Russia's human wave assaults.
The trenches in this part of the front extend for miles and miles. Now, the team here, their job is to spot for any movement. The Russians are only a couple of kilometers away, and they also have a Russian radio, and they're able to listen in to their communications.
The soldiers here say they can defend their positions. They are inured to this hell. But Russia is a powerful enemy and doesn't seem to care how many men it pushes forwards. Alex Rossi, Sky News, in eastern Ukraine.
We thank Alex Rossi and his team for that incredible report. Coming up, election turmoil in Nigeria. Voters targeted by gunfire and ballots being counted for days. The opposition now claiming the ruling party has rigged a high-stakes election. The threat tonight to Africa's largest democracy and the impact it could have far beyond the country's borders. Stay with us. Back now with the turmoil in Nigeria following the country's presidential election this weekend. Officials taking days to count the votes, sparking violent protests and accusations of corruption in what was considered Africa's largest democracy. Matt Bradley tonight with the latest as the contested results come in.
They started out peaceful and orderly, but Nigeria's elections have descended into disorder.
Can you see what is happening now? They want to make sure they suppress others from voting.
Protests against election officials. And in some cases, violence.
There's a serious fight going on here at the LGA Collection Center. Serious fight.
But if Saturday's vote looked like chaos, tonight's contested results show support for continuity, handing a sweeping victory to Bola Tinubu, the ruling party candidate, over Atiku Abubakar, running for the main opposition. The results infuriated Nigeria's main opposition parties, who walked out of the vote counting center, calling the polls a sham and demanding a rerun. They say long waits at polling stations,
so we are still waiting on them,
along with days of delays counting the vote, are a sure sign the ruling party is cooking the election books. Much of the anger here is aimed at Nigeria's election commission. Voters are furious. The results from Saturday's polls were still being counted on Tuesday.
We want our results, our real results. We have suffered enough.
Nigeria's elections are a turning point for a troubled nation. It's the fiercest presidential contest since military rule ended here in 1999. But Nigeria is fending off a bloody Islamist insurgency in the north rising crimes like kidnappings and a currency crisis that's caused a shortage of cash. Many young Nigerians have now put their hopes in Peter Obi, who pulled off an upset win in Lagos, the leading party's home territory.
It's an existential election. The country is going through a very difficult time and requires an urgent and immediate turnaround.
Obi's dark horse candidacy was social media savvy, rejected traditional tribal politics, and challenged establishment titans for the first time. But regardless of who wins, these results will be felt far beyond the borders of Africa's largest country, a nation many see as setting the tone for the entire region.
Matt Bradley joins Top Story tonight. Matt, you had an important line there towards the end of your report where you said this election will be felt beyond Nigeria's borders. Explain to our viewers why.
Yeah, it's not just because Nigeria has the largest population in Africa or the largest economy, but also because governance can be contagious. Good elections that are well run can inspire neighbors, and also bad elections and political violence can dissuade them. Tom?
It's a great point. All right, Matt Bradley for us. Matt, we appreciate that. Coming up, back here at home, TikTok under threat. Congress moving to ban the popular social media app over fears China is using it to get sensitive material from here in the U.S. Stay with us. Finally tonight, the battle over TikTok, the popular social media app ordered to be taken off all government devices. The platform now in the crosshairs of Congress, with lawmakers considering a nationwide ban over concerns it gives China access to sensitive user data. Jake Ward tonight with how the company and users are responding.
Every time an American opens TikTok, each of them might be handing over personal information like names, email addresses, even physical location. It all forms a vast database on Americans inside a Chinese-owned company. And that has made TikTok the latest front in a deepening war of words with China. The White House saying it needs to curb foreign adversaries' access to Americans' data, while China's foreign minister criticized the world's #1 superpower for being afraid of a mobile phone application that young people like so much.
I'm 18. We're all 18. Like, let me share my information with China if I want to. Like, I literally could care less.
Federal employees have 30 days to delete TikTok off all government devices. The House Foreign Affairs Committee voted today to give President Biden authority to essentially outlaw it for all Americans. Already, 41 states have some sort of ban in place or under consideration.
The ACLU says a ban would violate the First Amendment rights of millions of Americans. Experts say that, in fact, a national ban has little precedent here in the U.S., but it's common in China.
China typically bans big tech and social media companies from their citizens being able to access them, ostensibly for some of the same privacy concerns and reasons.
Last year, a TikTok executive addressed concerns about personal data.
Under no circumstances would we give that data to China.
In a statement, TikTok calls talk of a ban political theater and urged lawmakers not to censor millions of Americans. But a rare bipartisan coalition is nonetheless threatening to ban one of the most popular apps in the world. Jake Ward, NBC News, New York.
We thank Jake Ward for that, and we thank you for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.